right, Michael. So, people hear this. You have Occupy Wall Street. Maybe you've got Occupy Silicon Valley now with people attacking these Google buses and talking about high rents now. But is this idea that, you have this arrogant tech bro, the guy who's building these companies or the girl who's building these companies, that you need that in order to change the world?
It's a good question. This is an article by Joel Stein, who in the small world moment of the news and media in Silicon Valley is actually a friend of mine, so I have to disclose that.
Oh.
He asked me about this article sort of a couple months ago as he was gearing up on it when it had a slightly different focus, I think. He covers a lot of ground in this article. He talks about brogramming, the culture or putative culture of Silicon Valley, where kind of frat house bros make code. He talks about the arrogance of the entrepreneur, whether that's a desirable quality. He talks about the economic shifts in San Francisco that happen because the rents are going up. He covers a lot of ground. There's a nuance he's trying to, I think, map out, which is it takes a certain kind of person to do a certain kind of thing in Silicon Valley. There's what he calls a liberalitarian politics, an ideology that says anything is possible, we can do anything. Entrepreneurship and the stuff that we do in Silicon Valley is not sort of physically taxing, but it is hard in certain ways. Most people think that what you're going to do is going to be unsuccessful. Most people think that what you're going to do is dreamy or dumb or
flaky,
far out. Yeah, and so you have to have a certain amount of, whether you call it arrogance or confidence or conviction is another word people use for it, to continue to overcome obstacles. Every company, every venture has a lot of ups and downs. This is not unique to Silicon Valley. But in the early chrysalis days of a startup, it's even more seismic. It's even more personal. It's even more heart-wrenching and heartbreaking than it is at a large company. So that kind of what he calls arrogance maybe, or confidence in other parts of the piece, is something that might be very useful in achieving these very far out dreams.
It is, Michael. So then is there a risk here? Do we jeopardize that usefulness if we start asking Silicon Valley to hold a mirror to themselves?
Well, that's a fair question. One thing that Silicon Valley is not good at is irony. So I think people would have an easier time with Silicon Valley if Silicon Valley were a little less sort of religiously sincere about itself.
We want to change the world. We want to make the world a better place.
And everything we do is just dripping with righteousness. That kind of thing. Right, that kind of thing. So if we could sort of have a little bit of more of a sense of humor about ourselves, I think they would be better off. You can meet someone in Silicon Valley who, in all sincerity, will tell you that hey, yesterday he was swimming with the dolphins and he came up with a new and revolutionary idea about how to deliver frozen yogurt to your house. And my God, he's going to change the world. That's the kind of stuff that pisses people off, and understandably so, especially when it's said without a sense of humor. But there are people here, most of us, who are trying to do something quite remarkable and who are trying to do something that is free of the burdens of the past, right? America is very good at the future, and Silicon Valley is especially good at the future. We're the sort of the compressed air in front of the tip of the spear of the American economy, and that's what we're good at. So kind of burdening what we do with whether it's the mirror or a certain kind of regulation may not be the right approach, but certainly we're the people who want to get in and fight, who want to mix it up, and who are going to create new things. And it does require a certain different kind of personality, not a staid person, a much more unstaid person to do that.
Well, Michael, there was one example of a company that was in the piece called Yo, which had gotten like a $1.5 million round of funding, and basically the only thing that this app does is it sends the word yo to people's phones. And so, on the one hand, you could look at that, people on the outside say, oh my God, like, when is this ridiculousness going to end, and why are we funding companies like that? But then later in the piece, it mentions how this app is being used, I believe, by militants in other parts of the world who are sending each other yo messages to warn them of places that they shouldn't go because there may be attacks there. So, you never know when these kind of companies, these apps, I guess, become, have these real world applications.
So let's connect those dots. Yo is an example of something that it's sort of new and bewildering to people because it only does one thing, which is send the word yo to someone. And I think it was Israelis who were using it to warn one another of incoming attacks, rockets. But there's another element to it. Is one very famous venture capitalist took umbrage with the criticism of Yo and then defined a lexicon, and this was sort of what was annoying about the Silicon Valley response to Yo, which was this venture capitalist defined a lexicon calling Yo the beginning of one-byte communication, and elevating it, therefore, to some kind of religiously significant hagiographical moment in time. And I just thought that was obnoxious and dumb. So that's the kind of moment where Silicon Valley does not have a good sense of irony about itself.
Yep.
Yo may or may not be important. I don't particularly think it is, but it may end up being successful or useful. But we don't have to elevate it as something that's sort of automatically now a matter of religious and scientific significance.
Right.
It's just an app. It's okay. It's okay just to have an app. It doesn't mean it has to. Not everyone has to cure cancer every day, but we don't have to elevate it to the level of cancer cure.
Michael, all right, we can't be curing cancer with an app called Yo. Michael, thank you so much.